What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of Poker Face Season 1, Episode 8, titled The Orpheus Syndrome. This is starring and directed by Natasha Lyonne. Okay, so this is an episode that's really close to my heart, and what I mean by that is it's an episode that deals with, monster movie making and practical effects. It's very much a homage to Ray Harryhausen and, of course, Industrial Light and Magic, the people that have revolutionized effects and practical effects in stop motion being one of my favorite kind of genres in filmmaking. And it also has a character played by Nick Nolte who very much feels like Phil Tippett. And if you know or have seen Phil Tippett, he's an individual that worked in Industrial Light and Magic, known for doing a lot of practical effects. Just directed a movie called Mad God, which this movie feels like it has a lot of feels to it when it comes to that kind of creation of what Phil Tippett does, and is an episode that I actually feel is the best of the season. To be fairly honest, it has a lot of great acting moments, has a really great villainous chewing scenery character played by Cherry Jones, and is an episode that I think works on all levels. It's written by Natasha Lyonne, directed by Natasha Lyonne. It's also co-written by Alice Jew. It's an episode that you can tell that if Rian Johnson was involved at any point in this episode, is just a love letter to the people that create the behind the scenes that make the monsters and the ideas of monsters and the ideas of special effects and how that works, how everything is so creative and we just don't think about it. This episode does it in a nutshell. It's still a murder mystery show, so it still has to do that kind of stuff, but in a nutshell, that's what I believe Natasha Lyonne and the writers and creators are doing with this episode. But I also like this episode's structure because it starts out with Tim Russ, who is friends with Cherry Jones's character. He's running out of the house that Cherry Jones lives in, and he looks like he's really sick, and she's trying to plead with him. She's like, it doesn't need to be this way. He throws himself off the house. He throws himself to his death. And so Cherry Jones and of course Tim Russ and Nick Nolte started this company called LAM, which is very similar to Ray Harryhausen's studio or maybe Industrial Light and Magic. She's now become the sole proprietor, but there is an incident anyways, which we'll get to later on. But basically what happens is she goes and she pleads with Nick Nolte to make this really lifelike bust of Tim Russ's character, and so that she can apologize and so on and so forth. Well, of course there's more to it, and of course we find out what's more about it. Basically, Tim Russ he's watched this footage that he's going to take to the police. He's found something on this footage very famous to all three of them. Is basically broken up the relationship and caused a lot of strife, and we don't really see what it is till later on in the episode. But he says, I wanted to tell you before I go to the police because you're guilty of whatever is in this footage. And of course she poisons his tea. He realizes what's going to happen. He realizes that she says she needs to delete the footage, but he needs her password, which she has, but he doesn't. He realizes, which we find out a little bit later on, that is a two-form factor authentication, which needs his face, and of course he jumps out and lands on his face, so therefore that's why she needs the bust, the lifelike maquette bust and stuff like that, which I thought was a pretty clever kind of way to introduce what exactly Cherry Jones is, which is a very disturbed, very dark individual that did something really, really bad, apparently, maybe whenever it was in her youth or something like that. But she deletes the footage after she gets the maquette, and she of course calls what we learn, who is later played by Luis Guzmán, who plays Raul, that she wants the actual film print to burn it as well, to kind of keep her from being guilty and stuff like that. Well, this of course brings in Charlie. She is working at a local haircutting place. She is basically tasked to deliver hair to Nick Nolte character, who of course is he looks and sounds and acts, outside of the drinking problem, looks, sounds and acts just like Phil Tippett, just in his demeanor, just the way he dresses, his hair and stuff like that. So I think that's what they were going for. There's no trivia on it, so I could be wrong about that, but that's what my feeling about it is. And she goes and she becomes friends with this character, this Alex character, or Arthur character, who's played by, of course, Nick Nolte. And Nick Nolte is just he's just Nick Nolte. He does what he does. He's really good in this episode. He's really feels like he has a lot of demons in the episode, which is kind of cool. And they befriend, and we basically see that he's creating something called the Orpheus Project, or Orpheus Syndrome, or whatever it is, which is very much in the vein of Mad God, which, once again, if you've seen Mad God, you know what I'm talking about, where it's this kind of weird, kind of horror dystopian world where, there's creatures and stuff like that. It's all stop motion, and one of the characters has a camera on its head and stuff like that. that, which is really cool. But basically it boils down to that once he gets the footage from Raoul of this particular set of footage, we learn that, of course, Cherry Jones' character, Laura, basically they were filming something for a project for, a special effect, and it involved the tank. Rowan Blanchard, who, if you've seen Snowpiercer, she was in Snowpiercer, basically drowned. And what we find out is there's supposed to be a light bulb, so she knows that the take is over. Well, Cherry Jones' Laura character at the younger age basically removed the bulb, and it actually made Arthur realize that he was not actually to blame. It was actually Laura's character, the Cherry Jones character, who caused the murder and caused the death. So he realizes why Tim Russ's character was basically murdered, and so he goes to see Cherry Jones, and he decides he's going to burn the footage because of reasons. She ends up poisoning him. He ends up having a heart attack and dies. And it basically boils down to she finds out that he actually spliced the footage out and is going to find a way to show it to the audience. It was basically a scheme, and he ended up dying before it happens. Well, she has the trust of all Nick Nolte's Arthur stuff, takes it to a museum to be on display. Of course, Natasha Lyonne, being the fact that she can kind of tell lies, she actually meets Cherry Jones's character, and she's able to tell that Cherry Jones's Laura character is lying, and she realizes the film is on this like Medusa head and stuff like that. And then on top of that, Raoul is fired, and then of course Natasha Lyonne's Charlie character and Raoul go to the museum because there's an exhibit for Arthur. They end up finding a way to show the footage, and of course Cherry Jones, Laura character, like freaking out, realizing what's going on. She's trying to stop everything. She's having a panic attack. She goes into Arthur's exhibit, and she sees what she thinks is Tim Russ's Max character. And she, as Tim Russ did in the episode, fall off the side of the building. She jumps off the side of the building and kills herself, and that's the end of the episode. And it's a really dark episode. It's a really dark moment, but there's also like a really cool sequence where we see all like the kind of stop motion animation stuff that Arthur had been filming come to life, and it's a really grotesque. And it's like once again, it's like Mad God or like Willy Wonka updated with his like tunnel of like disturbed individual characters and stuff like that. That's what we see. So we see everything that was in the shop in having flashbacks or kind of visions of what the Laura character sees, and it's really cool. I think it's some of the best things I've seen. It really shows Natasha Lyonne and the writer and creator and stuff like that had a really cool idea for this episode, and it really works. And I think everybody dies, all three people die, and two of them die because of her kind of meddling, but she ends up dying of like not only guilt, but kind of she has that point where she just jumps off and kills herself, and that's the end of the episode. It was pretty shocking to see her die. And of course, like most of these episodes, there is no police involved. It's just the people die. Charlie moves on to the next story, which we're only 2 episodes away from this first season ending, but that's how the episode ends. It ends just like that, and I just love it. I love every aspect because not only is it an interesting story with the idea of these 3 individuals and the murder situation, and the fact that there's so much guilt from Arthur that he went into seclusion. Now he does this stuff where he's basically unloading everything that he thought he had done in his past to cause this murder, and it's used to that, like I said, the stop motion stuff, which is really cool. I like the idea that Max is, Tim Russ character is an individual that is not in it very much, but he very much has that little small place in Laura's mind that will always haunt her every time she sees him. And that like lifelike maquette is really well done. So, she'll always see that. And then on top of that, Cherry Jones's Laura character, she's just absolutely fantastic. Because like I said, that chewing scenery type person who just does a really nice job of being the villain. There's like so much hate and hatred, but so much scaredness to her. She's just never going to be able to outlive the situation at hand, and it's always going to haunt her. And I thought it was a really well done episode. And on top of that, I think Charlie, once again, she's there as the character that's going to solve the murder or solve the mystery. She's an individual that really gets close to Arthur's character, and I think Natasha Lyonne isn't like the main focus, that she never really is, because on top of that, she's also doing double duty, and she does a really nice job as a director. But it's just an episode that really does a nice job of just kind of taking that mystery and slowly letting the pieces kind of fall into place. And it also is helped with characters, once again, played by Guzmán, And it's a wonderful episode. It really is. It's like a 9.5 out of 10. I'll be fairly honest. I really, really enjoyed this episode. Thought it was really kind of unique and interesting. Does some really interesting things. I think once again, Natasha Lyonne does a really nice job. So, and on top of that, the stop motion stuff, even if it's computer generated, it really looks like stop motion, like horror, which is really cool. And like I said, stop motion doesn't get the love it deserves a lot of times, but here I think it really does. So, anyways, with that said, that is going to be my take on Poker Face Season 1, Episode 8, The Orpheus Syndrome. Definitely highly recommended. Definitely, if this were an Emmy Award like nominated show, this would be the episode I would put in there for, you know, the possibility of being Emmy nominated. So, anyways, with that said, thank you so much for watching. Comments below. Let me know what you think of this episode. Did you like it? Did you not like it? You know, if you didn't like it, it's perfectly all right, but let me know why. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.